Ramaphosa has kicked off his meetings with various stakeholders to discuss the country's worsening energy crisis. Last night, he met with the leadership of Eskom and the Energy Crisis Committee. Now, the meetings are expected to continue this week. The country currently dealing with stage 6 power cuts, with experts warning that the situation could get worse in the coming weeks. Now, Ramaphosa was meant to lead South Africa's delegation to the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland, but that has since been cancelled, that particular trip, by the president cancelling at the 11th hour. All right, well, let's continue with the president, who was supposed to meet with the opposition parties last night to discuss plans in tackling the continued load shedding. But it is believed that the parties, well, at least some, were not able to attend that meeting. Let's get some detail now, and we're joined by the leader of the main opposition, John Steenhuisen. John, thank you very much for your time. Good to talk to you once again, having spoken on Friday. Let's quickly deal with how that meeting would have gone. The understanding is that opposition parties were meant to be briefed by the Eskom board last night. Did that happen?
Well, it may have happened. I certainly wasn't able to attend after 4 hours of load shedding with no Wi-Fi. My devices had all completely run flat from work that had been done during the day. And unlike cabinet ministers and members of the executive, we don't get generators and free electricity in our homes. So unfortunately, I wasn't able to attend the meeting yesterday. But I've no doubt it would have just been, as we saw during COVID, a tick box exercise, very, very clearly, the president pretending that he's serious about the matter. But I'm still waiting to hear from him whether he's going to agree to a one-on-one meeting with me, as per the letter that I sent to him last week. Yeah.
So the agenda of the meeting, John, the Eskom board meeting with opposition parties, do you know what even was on the agenda of this meeting?
No, there was no agenda that was sent out, so I couldn't answer that. But I also know there were a number of other opposition leaders who were not able to make the meeting for precisely the fact that there was load shedding during the time that the meeting had been called. It's very, very clear that, and I think it brings into stark contrast the huge problem that we have with load shedding and just how disruptive it can be. I want a face-to-face meeting with the president. I want to sit with him and understand from him directly exactly what his plans are to fix things, particularly given the fact that a lot of the problems don't emanate from Eskom. They emanate from poor policy choices and terrible appointments that have been made over the years at Eskom, and I want to know particularly what's being done to address those. I think the time for talking and frankly the time for tick box exercises and promises are over. I'm very glad the president didn't go to Davos, as we spoke last week, and is staying here. But given the fact that he told Davos the last time he was there that our power problems were past us, I think it would have been incredibly embarrassing for the president to have to go and walk that all back at this particular Davos meeting. So probably a good idea he didn't attend anyway.
I'm glad you're picking up on the Davos trip having been cancelled. What is taking so long for the president's office to get back to you as leader of the main opposition party? Because one would imagine this is a national crisis.
Yeah, well, I don't think that they're particularly serious. The letter of acknowledgement I got from the president's parliamentary counsellor was frankly rude and dismissive. And which in itself is another matter I wish to take up with the president when I meet him one-on-one, basically saying, oh, we've listened to you before, etc., etc., which I don't think is a healthy way to deal with a constitutional office bearer like the leader of the opposition. I show the president's office respect. I certainly expect the same back. But frankly, Ollie, as I've said, I think the time for talking and niceties is over. It's got to be time for hardball now. And as I said to you last week as well, if this NERSA tariff increase and this electricity crisis from stage 6 potentially moving into stage 8 this week is not something that gets South Africans on the streets to protest, I don't know what is.
Yeah. John, for some time, you as the Democratic Alliance have been saying a national state of disaster perhaps should be declared on Eskom. And last night I was able to read through some material, particularly one article that I found interesting, and it put things into perspective as to why this would be a necessary step if indeed the president were to go that route. Now that he has chosen to remain in the country, firstly, what should he be saying to the nation? And second of all, will you still push for that state of disaster to be declared on Eskom?
The ring-fence state of disaster is essential. It doesn't matter who you put in charge of Eskom, whether it's Warren Buffett, Jack Ma, or Elon Musk. It is fundamentally broken. The model is broken. 110 countries around the world have separated generation from distribution and transmission, and have moved to opening up the energy agenda. Why we are still sitting here? So I think that the president's first announcement should be that he's getting the politicians and the ideology out of the way, and that he's contracting international and local experts who understand what needs to be done to get us out of this situation. But even then, if you put them in there and then subject them to the same constraints that Mr. De Ruyter was under, with an ideological dinosaur in charge of the department who is happy to go out and accuse you of treason and the like, it's not going to be tenable. Whoever the president puts in charge of this Eskom problem is going to have his personal and full backing. And he can't just walk away from him or her when it is politically expedient to do so, as we saw over the last few weeks. And then secondly, I would say very, very clearly that the energy czar and the international experts must be freed from those constraints of localization, triple BEE. It needs to be a state of disaster there to enable them, like we saw during the floods, like we saw during COVID, the flexibility to be able to address the immediate concern, which is getting power back into our homes and into our businesses and into our economy.
Finally, John, does it strike you as abnormal that we have gone into stage 6 load shedding? It's been a week now. There has been no update from Eskom itself as to what's going on. But also, strangely, there is no address from the president to the nation, because this is the worst that we have seen of this load shedding disaster.
Yeah, I do think it's strange, Polly, and we couldn't get the president off the TV during the COVID-19 pandemic. He was very happy to come on TV then to explain what he wanted to do. He's been noticeably absent from the space here now, and I don't know what he's going to do. He's going to end up coming onto TV and repeating the same promises he made a few months ago when he addressed the nation, and he would then have to explain why none of those things that he said was going to be done have actually been done. And he's going to have to explain why he's put the energy crisis and energy problem with Eskom in the hands of the very man who's been the biggest obstruction to energy reform in the country. And I think that's why the president, he doesn't know what to say to the nation, because it's been since 2015, you may recall him telling us in 18 months we'll remember that we ever had problems with load shedding, to telling his last visit to Davos that we've moved past the energy crisis and we should be an example around energy resilience, to promises that were made last year. It's all talk and no action. And I think that is why South Africans need to adopt a far more robust response. And there has to be rolling mass action in answer to rolling blackouts.
John Steenhuisen, thank you very much for your time. And